Doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. It's time to get your clicks fix.
Welcome back to Clicks Fix. I'm Rory. It has been 5 days since I've last played with these pint-sized plastic people. It was a really good game. I don't know if you follow Alpha Strike. You should. Definitely, he puts out a lot of good stuff. But Asael, he had his what he opened for the Spider-Verse set coming out that WizKids sent him. He brought that, and we acted as if it was sealed and we got two boosters, but we played 2v2 games. So there's a lot of stuff on the map. We each built like a team of 250 points, and yeah, it was fun. I was using the chase. I got to pull the chase Spider-Man with Thor's hammer with Mjolnir. It was a lot of fun. The first game he got an attack in, which was good, but they rolled super senses. That was the only time he got to attack. We didn't get very many turns in the game. Time just didn't allow for it. Weren't very high scoring games. The second game I played with him, it was on the we put him on the was it the Bloodstone Maze map. So he had like no movement attacks. It was he didn't get anything. He didn't get a chance to attack anything. Moreland did a pretty good job. I enjoyed using Moreland. It was fun. And I didn't play the third game. I let somebody else pilot the team. I had to take off. But yeah, that was fun. I'm looking forward to the set. Anyways, today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're not going to do a team building. We're not going to do an unboxing. I kind of just wanted to talk about Heroclix. And this is kind of the question that you kind of hear it sometimes when we're playing at local gaming stores. People walk by, they'll ask what the game is. But I was thinking, okay, so what do we tell people? Why do we play this game? What's great about this game? Why would somebody want to play, or why would somebody not want to play? I kind of wanted to do a rundown of the aspects of HeroClix, the pros and cons, if you will, in several different aspects. So let's get started. As a lot of WizKids marketing stuff says on for HeroClix, it is the quoting best selling collectible miniatures game on the market. So I hear that and I'm like, okay, what are the other collectible miniatures games on the market? I actually looked it up. There are quite a few. There's a good list. But HeroClix is the best selling. And I gotta wonder why. Why is it HeroClix that's the best selling? And there's a few obvious reasons. Let's go over it. And it's kind of like the reason we play the game in the first place is because of what it is. You get to take mostly Marvel and DC characters, and you could either play out your favorite moments from the comics or the movies, or you get to experiment with different battle scenarios. Like, what if these people teamed up against these people and they fought? What if this one guy took on the whole world if he has like a Tedpole type figure? And yeah, it's just like it's a lot of fun to recreate or make up your own scenarios for superheroes and more to fight and crossing worlds. It's like what happens when DC heroes cross with Marvel heroes, aside from the rare comics that actually do that. But you can play that out in HeroClix, and it's a lot of fun. Another reason that I think that HeroClix is the best-selling game of its kind is because they release so much product. They they have is it like 4 or 5 main sets a year, not including the starter sets and the Iconics and whatever else might come out. But there is so they they put so much out there, and each main set is like at least 50 figures plus whatever else they want to add, whether it's equipment or whatever. It's there's they put a lot of product out there, which people buy, and they want to get the higher rarity stuff. So you got to buy more than that. What you're anyway. They put out a lot. People buy a lot, so that is the best selling. That does create issues, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. But also, there are a lot of long term players. This game has been around since I think it's 2002, and a lot of people have been playing since the very beginning. I started playing in 2011, I think, 10 or 11, back when the Web of Spider Man set came out. That's when I started. So it's been a while for me as well. So there's a lot of long term players and collectors. Some people don't even play all that much. They just like to collect the figures, have them, whether for display or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons people have for buying HeroClix, making it the best selling game of its kind. So there are different aspects of the game. We're going to go over some of those, some of the main ones that I was thinking of, and pros and cons of each aspect. And we'll kind of do a sum up later. Let's start with the community. This is a big pro for the HeroClix. The community of HeroClix players is awesome. Not just people that put content out online, they're all awesome as well. But just every place I go to play HeroClix, I meet some of the greatest people, have some of the longest lasting friendships, whether I live there still or not. It's a really great community. There's so many. They put on a bunch of charity events. People do it for because they want to. There are a lot of really great people. Super friendly. Most of the time, there are times when there are, like anywhere, you'll see a bad egg every once in a while, but usually they don't seem to last very long, in my experience. We're always wanting new players. I mean, it's not a huge community. We always want to invite new people to play the game, and I think that's why so many of people in the community are so friendly and welcoming, is because they want more people to play with. I would like to play more than just once a week. But yeah, very few, very few bad seats that I've seen in the game. And the people that play, most of them are just playing not like to be super competitive and annoying. Most of them are playing just because it's so much fun. It's such a great game. So yeah, community all around. Check the box. Pro. Good job, WizKids, for creating this community. Now let's talk about the sculpts. There are some amazing sculpts in HeroClix. They are really good, and they come pre-painted. I'm not a figure painter. I don't do Warhammer and all that kind of stuff. I know people do improve paint jobs sometimes, but I'm glad that they come pre-painted. But the sculpts are just amazing, and they seem to just, in general, keep getting better and better and better. But even some of the old ones are really great. I I have a lot displayed. You can see some of them back there. There's It's kind of far away for this camera, but yeah, I'll put some of the well liked sculpts, some pictures of them up here when I post the video. But there are some awesome sculpts. They're also are some kind of boring sculpts. Usually that's on just the common figures, ones that they make a lot of, and that's sometimes kind of disappointing. Like if you just see Spider-Man in the comics, he's usually in some of the craziest poses, doing crazy flips, arms and legs in weird angles, and we get some of that all the time. But then there's some Heroclix where he's just standing there and his arm is out. It's kind of boring, like for a character that is so mobile and moves around so much. So sometimes a figure will fall a little bit flat, and sometimes the paint job they don't do too well on. Um, I think there's one that I recently got where it looks mostly okay, but the eyes like got shifted down to like here on the face somehow. Or I'm thinking that one rogue had the creepiest smile painted on her. It doesn't happen too often where there's just a really bad paint job, but the ones that other people do to update a paint job, those ones look really cool. So this also HeroClix also gives people that like doing that kind of stuff, like repainting figures, giving them that opportunity. That's that's really good. Now, also for another con for the sculpts, WizKids, is sculpt reuse. And I get it. Sometimes it just makes sense and it'll save the company money, but it's kind of just like a letdown for the player sometimes if a sculpt on, especially on a character or a figure that they really like, the when a sculpt is just reused from an older one, it's kind of like meh. But yeah, if you're reusing like one of the amazing sculpts, so like they had the super rare figures from Nick Fury Agents of Shield, like the Captain America, Falcon Captain America, and then several sets later they used that same sculpt for a rare figure of that character. And I think it's sometimes if it's like distance far enough apart and it's a good enough sculpt in the first place, sure. But yeah, sometimes it's just I wonder why it even exists if it's not a very good figure and it is just a sculpt reuse. Anyway, sculpts overall, I'm going to give a pro. They are there's so many beautiful ones, and they're really fun to just put on the map or display. There's some really great sculpts out there, and they're a lot of fun. So overall, sculpts, WizKids, good. If you want to see cool stuff, start playing HeroClix. Okay, so kind of hit on this just a little bit before. The number of figures since the game has been going for since 2002, there are so many figures in the game. Now, that means that you can get pretty much any version of a Marvel or DC character out there. I mean, yes, there are some unclicked figures still, and we always want more of those. We want people that have not had the chance to have a figure of them clicked. But like the main characters, there's like so many versions of them that you like whatever storyline that you like from the comics, you probably can find a version of that character that represents them, or directly comes from that storyline with named powers that come from lines in those comics and stuff like that. So that's an awesome thing. That's a pro for having so many figures because there are so many options that you can use and so many versions of the characters that you can bring onto your team. And there are other IPs besides Marvel and DC. Right now we've got Kong. He's huge. in the uh, non-Marvel, non-DC figures that we've got. He's huge in the meta. We've got Sherlock Holmes came out a while ago. We've got Dungeons and Dragons pieces coming out. Hopefully, more of them. They've been a lot of fun so far. A long time ago, we had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were awesome. Street Fighter, Lord of the Rings, Halo. There's so many IPs that WizKids tries to get into Heroclix, and the more the better, I say. So, yeah, I think that's a pro on these on the in the aspect of having so many figures. I'm sorry, it's kind of glitchy and skippy, but well, hopefully it turns out okay in the end. Okay, so along with having so many figures, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, main figures from the comics get made quite often, and for some people that can just feel very repetitive, especially if they don't function very different than older, like newer ones don't function all that different from older versions of the character. So, yes, there are a lot of chances to have different versions of the character, hopefully, like from different stories in the comics and stuff like that. But sometimes it really does fall flat because it's so repetitive for some of the characters. So that's one thing I would say watch out for. Like if you're wanting to play competitively, then it doesn't really matter what the character is. You're just trying to get the best figures. If you're wanting to play just for fun, I'd say get the ones that you want. If you're trying to collect them all, you collect them all. That's just how it goes. But uh, if like for me, I like to have at least one figure of a character that I really like to play that can be in any kind of build, whether it's modern or silver or whatever it is. So with so many figures for collectors, are you ever going to play all of them? I think for most people, the resounding answer is going to be no. But we still got to have them. At this point, it's like an addiction. We got to have them. Like it's like Pokemon, got to catch them all. Doesn't mean you're going to play with them all. No, so that might be a little bit of a con in on this for having so many figures. You're not going to use them all. It's just not feasible unless you're playing all day, every day. Yeah. And having so many figures, collectors have a lot that they need to hunt down. I know a few of them. Some of them just buy sets entire um, without buying sealed products. But if you're going through sealed products, that's a lot that you have to buy to try to collect all the ones that you want. But you don't have to be a collector. Overall, I think having so many figures, I think that's a pro, just because it just gives so many options. Now, not everybody has to have every figure. People can just hunt down the ones that they want, and that's why I'm still considering it a pro. Especially if you're not going in the meta, the like higher level tournaments and stuff like that. Having a ton of figures, whatever, you can just get the ones you want to play with and have fun with. So, yeah, I consider that having so many figures available is a pro overall. Now, speaking of tournaments, um, there are a lot of options that we have, especially now. There are a lot of different formats for tournaments. There's golden, like some places just do golden, which means every figure that's ever been made pretty much is available to build with. Um, Silver, that means from a certain point moving forward, those are the ones that are available to work with. I can't remember when Superior Foes of Spider-Man came out. That was, I think that's the cutoff for silver. And then modern, which is the like past 2 years of main sets, basically, and then some prizing figures or special releases get a little bit longer in modern, which is great. So those are the main three ages, basically, that you can build with for tournaments. And then there's pulp, which is great for newer players or those on a budget, where the higher rarity figures aren't allowed. It's basically just commons and commons and rares. And then there's sealed, which I think is a lot of fun. It's kind of a sometimes it's imbalanced depending on the set, and sometimes it's really balanced. But because it, in my opinion, it's more balanced than not in general because people can't pre-plan, pre-build some weird, crazy strategies. They just get to use what they pull out of their packs, and whether that's in a draft format or building a 300 team out of it. Then there's custom. Like people could do whatever kinds of builds they want. There's one time when I did a hey every figure you play has to be the same point value. Uh, One was or this is like robots or a monster apocalypse. So you build two teams and then you roll off to see which you or your opponent uses the monster or whatever it is. It can be scientists versus brutes or whatever it is. There's so many different things. It's just your imagination. You can try to match it to other popular media, whether it's like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Make sure your whole team matches somebody from Team Avatar with their powers in one way or another. So yeah, there's just so much you can do with the format of how you play, especially if it's just on your own in your home, at the kitchen table, or at a local gaming store. Sometimes they. Oh, we'll talk about that in a bit. But and there is a lot of levels of competition. There are a lot of levels. Everything from just fun local weekly tournaments that can be doing whatever the people there want to do, to super competitive worlds and all that kind of stuff. So however, whatever your level of competitiveness is, you can find a place for it somewhere, and that's definitely a pro for on the tournaments. Now, when it gets to higher level, it can be a little cutthroat. So I would say that's both pro and a con for the tournaments. For those people that like that competitiveness and have that edge, that's what they play the game for, it's great. But if you don't have that, if that's not what you want to do, I mean, you don't have to go play. It's not something. I don't ever think I'm going to go play in Worlds unless I'm just going to do the drafts or the seals, maybe team seals that will be the most competitive version that I play. Uh, but yeah, that's you can find wherever you want, especially if the pricing is good, is going to be more cutthroat, no matter where it is. But yeah. Speaking of how competitive it is, especially right now in the game, I think is really good in the sense of diversity. I don't really study the meta teams a ton, but I click through a lot of the main tournaments on HC units and see what the teams that do well are. And there's a lot of diversity in the game right now. So many different ways to build a good team. Whereas sometimes in the past, it's basically if you don't have this build or a slight variation of this build, you're not going to go anywhere. Um, so right now, that's a pro. Be careful, whiz kids. Don't let it become a con. And they're pretty good at seeing if something like that is going to happen these days, and maybe doing an errata to a figure that would completely dominate. So good on whiz kids for that right now. Now, tournaments, is it pay to win? My answer is kinda. In the end, the dice decide the game, right? Unless you build a stupid dark side team that doesn't even need to roll dice. And I that's a whole nother thing. To me, that ignores the spirit of the game. But it's true, higher rarity figures are going to be more expensive, especially on the secondary market. But remember, you are still limited to 300 points in the main modern format. Whatever it is, you are limited in points for your team build. You can't just bring all of the best stuff that's out there and dominate the game. Um, Whereas I'd say, like in Magic, you can do that more. You put in your deck at least, up to four of whichever cards you want. But to me, that's a lot more of a pay to win situation. Like, okay, I need all these cards in my deck. But for me, Heroclix is not like that as much. Now, if you don't care about going super competitive, it's fine. That's kind of like in my situation. I don't feel like it's pay to win. I pay for maybe a brick and a few other boosters of a set, and I find having fun in those things. And then maybe there's some pieces specifically that I want to play with, so I buy them individually. Doesn't happen all that often, but I like to play with what I pull, and yeah, I don't always win, but I always have fun. Now, let's move on to price. Uh, let's skip around. Price. Like everything in the world, the price of Heroclix is going up. It's gone up quite a bit recently. That's a con, but you know, in context, everything is getting more expensive. Now, I would say that in places where everything is more expensive, why aren't HeroClix more expensive there than in places where the economy is doing better? Why aren't HeroClix more less expensive? That's a whole different thing. Anyway, if you don't play super competitively, you can get the common, uncommon, and rare pieces pretty dang cheap. There are people that sell like a full cur, like common, uncommon, and rare, a full cur of a whole set for, I don't know, 10, $15 because they buy a lot and they just have so much extra that they want to get something out of it. So that's a pro in the pricing. Um, if you don't want to buy a ton of boosters, but you just want the more common pieces from the set, it's not that hard to do and it's not too expensive, and that's great. But I mean, some of the figures that are more rare, like Ultra Chase pieces, those can get up to over $200, and that's when it gets kind of bonkers. I'm like, I'm not even looking at that. My bank account won't let me look at those. I only ever pulled one Ultra Chase, and it was not one that people really cared that much about. It was the Peggy Carter Captain America. I like her. She's super fun to play with. I mean, you play her for free on the sideline. She comes in. Why not have a free figure come in? But I mean, there's a lot more of that nowadays and more modern pieces. But she's fun. Another thing about price, figures can drop their value really fast once they rotate out of the modern. Um, because there are a lot of people that like to only play modern, that which makes it so as pieces get older, they don't retain the value like stuff does maybe in other collectible games, which is sad. I see that as a con. It's getting a little bit better. So props to WizKids for doing stuff like legacy cards, which lets well, one, I think it just gives a sense of all of my figures, no matter how old they are, may at some point be worth something, worth playing again for one, but maybe worth some money if you don't like playing it. Like right now, I've got sitting here three of these Spider Girl pieces. I know they were just uncommon from the set, but people, I can trade them off. If people want to have them, that like especially like newer players that weren't collecting back then, if they get that legacy card, they might want to have the figure. So that and creating more types of crap. What's the word? My brain's going blank. Formats, making formats like silver, like giving silver an actual, making an actual thing in at the national level tournaments and stuff like that. That is good, I think, as well for the price. It's like your investment in newer pieces doesn't drop off as quickly. So price overall, I think right now I'd still have to say it's a con because it's still expensive, especially if you like buy two boosters for I don't know almost $40, and maybe you only get rares, nothing that are worth maybe $2 at the time. So like the what you're worth, like you paid near $40, but what you get out of it might just be 10 or less. So I'm gonna have to make that a con right now. Hopefully, we can get that better in the future. Now, let's talk a little bit about the complexity of the game. Like the packaging says, it's recommended for ages 14 and up. I would say that's a fair assessment. There's a lot of reading in the game. There's a decent amount of math. It's not complicated math, but you got to keep doing a lot of math as the game goes on. And there's there are a lot of powers in the game that you have to understand, and that's kind of a con. It is a complex game, not as complex as others, but it is a complex game. Now there's the pack, there the powers and abilities card. That is definitely a pro for the game in terms of complexity. Having that card with the most that's like the most relevant information for most situations that you're going to encounter in the game, you can find on that card. Now the full deep dive of the rules, there are things that you'll need to reference that uh, for, and that's mostly for people that organize the tournaments or judges and stuff like that. That's I mean, everybody that plays the game needs to kind of understand how that works, especially if they're playing figures where that kind of stuff will come into play. Understand the rules. But then it also comes back to community. The community is so great. If you have a question about the game, there are Facebook groups where you ask a question, you will get an answer super fast, or in Discord, that kind of stuff. And people, I have never seen someone like shamed for not understanding a ruling or something like that. People want others to understand, they want to help. The community is great, which helps for how complex the game is. So I'd say, and they're very responsive. That is a definite pro on the side of complexity. Well, sometimes it does feel like I've heard it said before, you need an English degree if you want to decipher how some of these powers work. It's kind of true, and I do think they want that you're gonna whiz kids could invest in somebody with one or two writing degrees. I'm sitting right here to help make sure that the stuff is more clear in the way they word their powers and all that kind of stuff. They're doing better. They're doing a lot better than they used to. A lot in older versions of the rules, sometimes things were just not as clear. It's kind of confusing, but it's doing a lot better now. Overall, I'd say complexity. It's complex enough to always keep it interesting, and but not so complex that it turns people away. So you do have to invest a little bit into understanding the game in the first place. But like I said, there are ways, and people just keep learning all the time. I've been playing for, what is it, 14 years? And I'm still learning new ways of why things interact the way they do in the game. So, and that kind of comes to my next topic, which is rules updates. That makes it one a little harder to stay up to date on what the rules are, but there's well, okay, let's get into it. Rules updates, they they happen every seem to happen every few years to one extent or another, maybe just a little or kind of a larger overhaul, and that's been kind of a thing with HeroClix for quite a while. One that makes people kind of have to relearn parts of the game, and that's kind of a con. It's like I don't want to have to relearn different things about the game. But on the other hand, it keeps the game fresh, even for long-term players. It mixes things up. Like, ooh, now how can I play this differently? How do some of my favorite characters work differently now with the rules changes and stuff like that? Each time it happens that I've seen, it overall makes the game better, a little more balanced. So overall, I would say the rules updates are pros that it happens because it kind of helps balance different things in the game, and it helps make things a little more streamlined. It helps make things a little more understandable. So rules updates so far, they are overall a pro. There are sometimes specific things that change that I might not like the Mystics team ability. WizKids did it dirty. I know it's still good, but Superman still needs to take damage from Mystics even if he has Invincible. It needs to either be copyable or either be unavoidable. That's my opinion, but you did it. You did Mystics dirty when you took away both of that, both of those things. Anyway, okay. Beyond rules updates, let's talk a little bit about the power creep. Now, this kind of is it's a natural occurrence for this kind of a collectible game. Like even in Magic, you look at a lot of the older cards, their mana cost for their attack and defense, whatever it is. I haven't played in a long time. It's for the older cards. They're way too expensive in mana cost than newer cards that can maybe do the same thing. So it's a thing. It just is going to happen if they want to keep selling product continually. It's not as bad as it used to be, I think, in the game, but it still happens. Um, and it's kind of a con because that makes it so you have to keep buying new product if you want to keep playing and have a chance of winning any of the games. There are some, I mean, it's a rare figure that still holds water with the uh, newer figures that come out. It happens when they make a figure just that does something so cool that it doesn't matter what else it's around, it'll be good. So, but overall, there is a power creep, and uh, it is a con that the power creep happens, but I think it is a little more under control than it used to be. The stats aren't changing so much as just the uniqueness of different powers and things that happen. And I think that's good for WizKids, that keeping the power creep to a minimum, but still keeping it fresh with unique types of powers and the way they work, like the team, like shared team abilities, stuff like that. Now legacies help again in this power creep. Like they're older figures, not as good, but hey, a legacy card comes out for them, giving them a new point value, giving them new powers that may help them make up for their uh, stats, their combat values that might be a little bit low. So that's a pro for in the sense of power creep, letting some figures get revamped. Now there are some places I've heard of. I've never been there, but like there's, and this is kind of just up to your players or up to you if you're just playing with friends at home. You can take older figures and depending on how old they are, calculate new point values for them. I don't know what math different people use, but that's an option, especially if you're just playing at home for fun. It's like I have this really old figure. It takes up way too many points on my team for what it does uh, in today's game, but I would still like to use it. Can we rework its point value so it can fit on a team better for what it does? Now I think that's a like that people have that opportunity that they can do that in this kind of a game. I think is really awesome, and that's a pro that kind of lets people adjust for the power creep themselves. Now, then there are just people who like to collect the figures and stuff in this game. So I mean that makes power creep a non-issue. It's not if they're not as much of players as they are collectors. Doesn't really matter. I'd say overall power creep is a con, but it's an unavoidable con. And I think there are things that are going on with the game, whether at WizKids level or at just personal level, that are trying to get that under control. So, yeah, I think that's worth mentioning. Now, let's get into quality control. Everybody, if you've been playing this game a while, you knew it was coming. Quality control, it needs work, and there are times where it's better than others in the game through its history. There are times when it's yeah, it's been a bigger issue than others. There are so okay. There are several different aspects that need to be addressed sometimes with quality control. One is there may be unexpected exploitations that require instant changes to characters. Like I'm thinking the most recent one was with the dark side and Sleipnir, how they worked. That people were thinking, oh man, that's like a way you can get a 300 point figure onto the field way easy and for way fewer points. And that was nuts. Like the concept that was just crazy that that could work. and WizKids snapped down on it real fast. Um, but it's like one of those things that they should have seen coming before they released the character. What personally, I don't like how they did the fix. I think they should have changed Darkseid and not the entire pilot ability, because the pilot ability was only being really exploited for him. Others that could do something similar but that weren't as nuts, it wasn't really being seen. Nobody played that in the meta. The main one for me was the well, okay, there's two of them. The Cap Wolf with the Legacy Hulk. Like he could come out and die and go to a different click and then come back. It just took a little bit longer to kill him if you wanted to deal with that. And then Zombie Wolverine on the Wolverine one with that pilot. That yeah, he'll come out and then he'll die and go to his crazy zombie clicks. But I mean, I played it once and they still killed him. It's just they got to hit him enough times. He dies. It's not overpowering. It was only that one instance, but they nixed it. Okay, this is my soapbox. I'll get it off now. I'll get off now. Anyways, so that's one thing, and WizKids has been doing a really good job of noticing those things quickly if they get out as basically a quality control issue, and then they kind of they rein it in pretty quickly. Now misprints. There are times where there's a misprint on a card or on a character base, or something that doesn't make sense, like the Kree soldier didn't have a range when he had penetrating psychic blast, that kind of stuff. WizKids again has been pretty quick in fixing those issues, and they're doing a good job. Again, we'd like those things not to happen in the first place, or mismatched figures in boosters. Like you have cards for one character, a card for one character, but the figure of a different character. It's yeah, that could be an issue. I think um, so, and that's especially if it happens to a higher rarity figure that that can feel bad, and that's one that I think WizKids really needs to work a little bit more on, is making sure that kind of stuff that happens, because it takes time to like send in the wrong figure, get the right figure back, or whatever the issue is. That can be yeah. I mean, and then there's when there's a problem with a sculpt, like I was talking about earlier, that's kind of a that's not something WizKids can deal with after the fact. That's kind of just like kind of drop the ball on that one with your quality control. But this kind of comes when like it's a natural result of releasing so much product all the time. Now I look at the last two starter sets for this year 2025, they didn't do any erratas. There was nothing that needed to be fixed with that one that I know of, unless it was for like some bystander or whatever. But for the main stuff, there was nothing that needed to be changed. So great job. But that it takes that amount of focus for the company. Like WizKids, like focus in, hone in, don't release so much product so that you can make what you do release a lot better and nothing needs to be fixed and changed when it comes out. That's that's what I would that's my advice to WizKids. Slow down, get it under control. Make sure that the stuff that comes out doesn't need fixing. But I would say overall, most of everything that comes out is good, doesn't need fixing. Quality control, okay, there's always something that's going to happen. So I would say quality control is right between pro and con. And I think it's getting better. I would recommend slowing down the main set releases. One, that'll be nicer for everybody that's trying to buy stuff. We, my pocketbook, my wallet can't handle buying as much as I want to get because of how much comes out. So yeah, that is quality control. Now, so let's go back. Those are the main issues that I wanted to talk about with why, not issues, but like aspects of the game that I want to talk about. The community, the sculpts, the number of figures, tournaments, price, complexity. So overall, let's say community is a pro. Sculpts overall is a pro. Number of figures, I would say because of the long history of the game, it's a pro, but I think it could be reined in a little bit, like I was just talking about with quality control. Tournaments, I would say, is a pro because there's something for everyone. Price, overall, I would say was a con. Um, and I think that can be uh, addressed in different ways, though. So, and I think it is being addressed in several different ways, but I still think it's a con. The complexity of the game, I think it's a pro. It's right at the appropriate level, I think. Rules updates, overall, pro. Good job, boys, kids. They're getting to a point. I don't think need we don't need many more rules updates. I think it's kind of found a really good spot with how it works. I think the only things that really would need updating are, I don't know, new team ability, or just like the team abilities that don't get reused anymore. Change them and put them on newer characters and stuff like that. But yeah, rules updates, overall pro. Power creep, I would say overall right now a con, but it's not as bad of a con as it could be. I think they've kind it, WizKids is doing a good job at addressing it, so it's not as bad, but overall a con. Quality control, it's it's uh, it's a con, but they're getting a lot better at it. And in the end, a lot of times it just becomes a non-issue because the change gets made, the things make sense, whatever it is, things get replaced. They address the issues. So initially a con, but it becomes a non-issue with how WizKids addresses it for the most part. But yeah, overall, it is a game to play. That's a lot of pros. I think there was more overall pros than cons for this game. It is, as I've heard from other people, it is chess on crack with superheroes and dice. And it is that addicting. It is a fun game. It's addicting for a reason because it's a lot of fun. It is just lets you play out so many different things that you want to see in your head. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Tell me what your thoughts are. Why do you play Heroclix? Tell me that in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share this with your friends that don't play. If like you have a tough time expressing why you like playing Heroclix, share this video with them so they understand why it's such a fun game. Uh, and then tell me what other things you think are the reasons that maybe I might have missed. Other pros. Do you disagree with me on some of these pros and con assessments of the different aspects of the game? Uh, let's talk about that. Talk to each other in the comments. But yeah, great talking about this, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully, my next video will be something to do with Spider Verse. We'll see. Anyway, talk to you later.